The bracelets of Isra, isn't it a vision? He's running away. He hasn't even reached Medina. There is no Islamic state as yet. Muslims cannot even dream of conquering the lands of Khusra and Qaisar. And yet the Prophet is saying, how will you feel? وَمِن تَقَتَوْ وَتَاجَوْ. Not only that you will be wearing the bracelet, but his entire region that he is ruling over and his crown will all be under Muslim rule. Isn't that a vision of the Prophet ﷺ? This doesn't occur in the Quran. But we know that Islam started with vision. The Prophet ﷺ was getting the visions. So he had a vision, but it's not just a miraculous vision. Professor Joel Hayward, and as I mentioned to you, I've been reading this book and giving this khutbahs on the basis of that book. He's a military strategist. He looks at it everything from a strategic point of view. That okay, the Prophet ﷺ got this vision. Maybe I will get a vision that 50 years from now, this will be the biggest building in America. Okay. How will I communicate it to people? How will I train people that in 50 years this does become that tall building? I don't have the capability. The Prophet ﷺ saw the vision. Muslims will be conquering the lands of Khusra. How to achieve it? He has to convince the people. So we'll talk about that thing. So now I will just quote from Professor Joel Hayward that the messengership of the final Prophet ﷺ had to come with a strategic vision to realize the major purpose of Islam on a global basis. So from the very beginning, Islam was not an Arabian religion. It was not limited to the vicinity of Mecca and Medina. The farthest Islam reached during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ was till Yemen. But we know that afterwards the vision came true. The Holy Prophet's vision and mission was not just Arabian, it was global. It required coming up with a long-term strategy guided by the Holy Quran, supported by human resources and action, and a firm belief that it is achievable. So now let's go back. We want this center to become the leading center of Islam in America. That's my vision. Let's say, for example, what will it require? It requires a strategy guided by the Holy Quran. هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ. That's the strategy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Prophet ﷺ. So everything was guided by the Quran. But second thing, we need resources and action, right? We cannot build a building without having a plan, without having some architects, without knowing what it will cost. We need people to build it. But beyond that, we have to convince ourselves it is achievable. If you think you cannot do something, you will never do it. It's only when you think that you can do it, then you say, what's my strategy? What are my resources? What people do I have who can make my vision come true? I may die before it is done, but I want my vision to actualize. That was the strategic part of the Prophet's messengership, how to convey this to others, to the Arab Bedouins, who would never have thought that it's achievable, to convey them it is achievable. And I'm giving you a strategy from the Quran. I'm preparing you for the task ahead. That was very well understood by the Sahaba, Abu Bakr and Umar and Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, and afterwards others too. So now let's look at what strategic vision implies. This is not in the book only. I've also taken help from ChatGPT. That strategic vision is a clear, inspiring, and long-term view. The emphasis is on long-term of what an organization, team, or individual aspires to achieve in future. It outlines a desired future state and serves as a guiding star for decision-making, goal-setting, and resource allocation. This is coming from a person who was not a Muslim, who looks at the life of the Prophet ﷺ and he finds out these things. We don't read them unfortunately, in the books written by Muslims, because our focus is it was a miracle. Yes, it was a miracle. How did he achieve it? And what can we learn from it? Angels will not come and help us. Allah may send them, but angels did not come down in every battle of the Prophet ﷺ. We know that. They came in Badr, they came in Hunain. But all other battles, the Prophet ﷺ had to strategize. Even Badr, he had to strategize. So, Professor Hayward now mentioned that the Holy Prophet ﷺ had the rare gift, That's why I'm saying that what makes the Prophet extraordinary in human history, if you look at from unbiased eyes, you read his story, you read what he achieved not only during his lifetime but even afterwards, because his legacy has continued. So that's why he's saying here the rare gift of being able to see, that's the vision, the potential growth of the initially unpopular religious ideas he considered important, as well as the social and political framework that he would need to create to sustain and protect those ideas, is a remarkable leadership quality. Able to bring the future close, he had a telescopic vision of Arabia and the world. He could see far away things as though they were close, and he was able to make them sound so desirable and meaningful to others that they wanted to make the journey with him. A couple of things I want to say about this thing. Many new ideas, extraordinary ideas in human history that have created the world that we live in and breathe today were very unpopular ideas to begin with. People with those ideas were heavily criticized. In fact, there is a very famous philosopher who passed away several years ago, one of the most outstanding philosophers in English history, Lord Bertrand Russell. It was not Lord, Earl Bertrand Russell. I read some of his essays. He had some ideas. He compiled two books, many books, but two of his books, he said, SS Popular and SS Unpopular. His main ideas were in the SS Unpopular because those were new ideas, they are unpopular. And please forgive me because I cannot resist the temptation to quote from Urdu poetry. Hali ne kaha tha, I will translate it. Surte wahi aur taal wahi, par ragni kuch bevakt si thi. Gul to bahut yaron ne machaya, par gaye aksar maan hame. He's talking about ideas that I'm bringing some new ideas that are out of the times. And even my friends criticize me, but eventually they come to agree with those things. So when the Prophet ﷺ came up with these ideas of monotheism, he never compromised on that. That was ma'azallah, unpopular ideas. And the Quraysh said, you are breaking away from the tradition of our forefathers. Professor Hubbard mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ turned this argument against them. How did he do that? So who are your forefathers? Say Ibrahim and Ismail. Because the Quraysh claimed to be the progeny of Ibrahim and Ismail. They called themselves, they were following the religion of Ibrahim. So who was Ibrahim? Was he a mushrik? If you look at the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Ibrahim, some words come very commonly in the story of Prophet ﷺ. Ibrahim Hanifa, wa ma kana minal mushrikin. Read the story of Ibrahim alayhi salatu. This comes like maybe 5, 6, even more. Musliman Hanifa wa ma kana minal mushrikin. Emphasis, he was not a polytheist. So the way the Prophet turned the arguments against the polytheist was that if your forefather was Ibrahim, give me any evidence that he worshipped the idols. He actually broke the idols. So how can you say that I'm breaking away from the tradition of forefathers if I tell you that your idols are not God, God is one? Those who had the understanding jumped on the idea and accepted Islam right away. The others took time. So he actually had the vision. You give me an argument, I'm giving you my argument. And I want you to understand one general principle is that if you want to refute a theory or a hypothesis, you have to come up with another theory or hypothesis which is stronger than the one that you're trying to refute. If your own argument is weak, you cannot overcome. So he came up with that argument and said, give me evidence. Where does Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam story tells you that he worshipped idols? He broke the idols, you know that. So that's how he did it. The third thing was to make the journey. And I will give you one example. How this is actually present in the life story of the Prophet ﷺ, the Battle of Tabuk, many of you remember. And I actually kind of realized that thing when I went for Umrah in August. It was extremely hot, almost intolerably hot. When I reached there on a Friday, it was late, I went for the Friday prayers. I got space on the roof, no carpet, no canopy, no umbrella, nothing. And it was hot, 42 degrees. And I realized that it was in the month of July that the Prophet sent out for a 3-month journey to Tabuk. People traveling in the desert without any sheds, without any air-conditioned train, traveling on foot, camels and horses. No one turned back. They made the journey with the Prophet ﷺ. Many of them didn't even know that they will be coming back alive. You're going to fight the Roman Empire. And what do you have with you? The conviction. That's what the third part was. If you think you can achieve it. If you think, oh, we are going to lose it, why make the journey? They made the journey because they believed in the Prophet ﷺ. Why did they believe? He was able to motivate them. He was able to convey his strategic vision to them in a way that say, we will make the journey with you. So now what are the key elements of strategic vision? Inshallah, we'll talk about it in the second part. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. A couple of announcements that I have to make, and my brother has some other announcements that he will make after the end of the prayers. So the first is a request by an ICB member, brother Sabi Ehsan. His young cousin, 21 years old, unfortunately, by the qada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muhammad Abdullah passed away last Friday in Karachi suddenly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a place in the highest level of Jannah. Allahumma ighfir lahu warhamhu wa adkhilhu fi jannatil firdaus. Allahumma a'idhu min adhabil qabr wa min adhabin nar. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give plenty of sabr and patience to his mother and other family members. The other is a request by Parvez Wahid, many of you know him, an ICB member, who is making a dua for relief from illness of his mother-in-law, Mrs. Shafia Huda, who is the mother of Shaista Wahid. She's sick, and we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Life is in Allah's hand. We don't want anybody to suffer unnecessarily. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy. Whatever best He thinks for our sister, He may do it. If it's her time, she should pass away peacefully. If it's not her time, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give her a long, healthy and prosperous life. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen the hearts of the family in this difficult time. So what did the Prophet do in Medina after he had migrated? He had to establish his vision and make sure that it comes to fruition. And as I mentioned, that first thing is you have to have a vision. You have to have the belief that you can achieve it. But the third is resource allocation and utilization of human resources. Right? Anything, any project that you do it. For this, you need a center. So he established a center, Masjid al-Nabawi. It was not for 5 daily prayers only. It was way more than that. It was the assembly hall. It was the Senate, the Congress, whatever you want to call it. It was the house in which decisions will be made, bringing people from all walks of life. And who are the people that he brought from all walks of life? There were migrants, immigrants, Muhajirin. There were Ansar, 2 groups were fighting with each other. And it happens in Masjid, you can have 2 groups, in which we have 20 groups. The job of the Imam and the job of the President and the trustees, how to make a compromise and make sure that all groups are happy with each other. So he did that. But there was a 3rd group as well, which was the Jews of Medina. He had to make sure that he integrates them. He tried his best to integrate them and established a Misaq of Medina with them. And there is something in the Misaq of Medina which he said, which is recorded in Sirah Ibn Hisham. Some of our Kannada scholars said, no, this is probably not true. But he says, وَكَتَبَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. The Prophet ﷺ wrote down in the Misaq, لِلْيَهُودَ دِينُهُمْ وَلِلْمُسْلِمِينَ دِينُهُم. Yahuda, they have the religion, and Muslim, they have the religion, because it goes with the Quran, La ikrah fid din. He wasn't forceful with the Yahuda, no, you must convert to Islam, otherwise you cannot stay in Medina. There were Jews in Medina even after the Prophet ﷺ had passed away, up until the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala. We know that. So he recognized and he said, we have to work together. Peaceful coexistence. He didn't want to fight with them. It was only after they broke their pledges that he had to take an action, in which everybody will take an action. We take an oath of allegiance to America when we become citizens. If we break the oath, what will happen to us? So that was natural consequence of what they did. But it is written And An-Nasai, the Prophet mentioned, all of the prophets were sent to one particular qawm, but I've been sent for everybody. So he realized that in his ummah, the current ummah, the entire ummah is the ummah of Prophet, not just the Muslims, actually. If you look at it broadly speaking, because there is no other Nabi to come, only one Nabi. Anyway, so the components of strategic vision very, very quickly. Number one, it is future oriented. What you are today doesn't matter. What you want to be in future is important, which is where you need the vision, the resources, the human allocation, the allocation of resources, the human action, and the belief that you can do it. So it basically, this its current understanding, I'm not going into religion, that future-oriented means it focuses on what the organization wants to become or achieve over time, usually 3 to 10 years. 3 to 10 years. When was Makkah conquered after the Prophet migrated to Medina? 8 years. In 10 years, he met with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So within those years, he achieved. He had not read political philosophy of our times, but he knew that he has a vision, a long-term vision, but long-term vision doesn't mean forever. There has to be some time period. I want to achieve this thing within this period of time. And that's how I will allocate my resources and involve people. Second, it has to be inspirational and motivational. And I gave you an example that people were willing to make the journey with the Prophet, not just figuratively, but in practice. They traveled everywhere with him despite the hardships. It has to be clear and concise. And that part I will inshallah discuss next month in the next chapter, which is strategic communication, how he communicated to his people. Third is guiding the strategy. There has to be a leader who has the strategy, but he has to guide the people along that strategy. So it helps shape long-term strategies and priorities. Our masajid, and I will tell you one real story after this paragraph that I've written, that we need people with different skill sets, organizational capabilities, and technical and financial knowledge to become involved. They can come forward and offer their time and expertise to serve the community. And believe me, I gave this khutbah 2 months ago to a community, and probably the same night or the day later, a brother that I've never met texted me and said, I was in the audience when you gave this khutbah, and I'm so and so, and I have so much skills. I want to present it to the masjid. Right away, I sent a message to the president of that masjid and say, don't ask any question, just talk to this brother, bring him in and see what he can do. 2 weeks later, he was giving a talk in the masjid. So my request to all of you, don't feel embarrassed, don't feel shy. Whatever skills you have, if you think it can benefit the community, come forward. Inshallah, Allah will help you. Next, it has to be value-based. We all have our values, and one important thing about the life of the Prophet ﷺ, he was willing to compromise, but not on values and not on monotheism. Lakum dinukum waliya din doesn't mean your din is right. It means you have the right to follow your religion, but I will not leave my religion. I will stay on my religion. My values are my values. You never compromise on that. So it often reflects the core values and culture the organization wants to uphold. We are different, but with shared universal values that we need to hold on to and ensure that our children and grandchildren also appreciate and hold on to this. Extremely important. The first generation usually wants to hold on to their language, culture, and religion. Subsequent generations, they begin to lose. The language goes away first. All cultures are good as long as the cultural practices do not violate Islamic values. We cannot endorse some practices in this country by saying they are okay. No, they are happening, we realize it, but they are not okay for us. We don't endorse them. Next is, it has to be inclusive, which is where I will end this khutbah, inshallah. It is not tribal, ethnic, racial, gender-based, limited geographically or time limited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, وَجَعَلَكُمْ شُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِندَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. We all belong to different nationalities, different countries that we came from, different tribes. The only idea is to get to know each other, not to differentiate, not to create a gulf between us and they. We. There is a point that they and we meet and say, we, not you and I, we. That's the important thing. Because in reality, the most honorable in the sight of Allah is the one who is more taqwa. And taqwa is in the heart. You cannot judge me. I cannot judge anybody here. So this is what the message will be. This masjid also has a strategic vision. I think they extended the annex. I haven't seen it. I want to see it. Inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for whatever you are doing. So, ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Make sincere dua for our brothers and sisters in Gaza and everywhere who are suffering, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease their difficulty, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should help them. We Muslims find ourselves very weak and unable to do that, but we still have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ease the difficulty of our brothers and Muslims. And whatever we can do through our words, through our work, through our money, we should do that. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
I want to make sure that everybody is in the sufuf. The sufuf are properly arranged. Fill the gaps, please. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim.